very room was empty. Every key was on the board. No guests, no movement. But when I checked the camera, room 312 wasn't empty. The lights were on, and someone was already inside.
Story 1. I worked the night shift at a small hotel on the edge of town. The building was old, wooden floors making short, dry sounds under every step. The hallways were narrow, with wallpaper peeling off the walls. At the front desk, there was a board full of brass keys, each one marked with a room number. I checked the register before midnight. Every room was vacant, every key on the board, no names, no guests. The lobby was empty, chairs aligned against the walls, one lamp on the counter, casting a weak circle of light, dust floating inside it. I stood still for a few seconds, then turned and walked toward the staircase. I went up to the second floor. The carpet softened my steps, but I could still feel the floor beneath it, worn, thin, like it had been walked too many times. The hallway stretched straight ahead, doors on both sides, all closed, all still, paint chipped around the frames. I moved from door to door, turning each handle without opening them. Each one resisted, locked, no sound from inside. At the end of the corridor, room 312. The door was closed, the handle still, the brass number plate darkened. I checked the key in my hand. 312, cold metal. I inserted it, turned it, and opened the door. The room was dark, curtains closed, bed made, sheets flat, no luggage, no personal items. The air felt colder than the hallway. I stepped inside, leaving the door open behind me. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain slightly. The street below was empty, no cars, no movement, streetlights casting an orange glow over wet pavement. I let the curtain fall and turned back toward the room. The bathroom door stood open. I walked toward it, tiles clean, sink dry, towel folded, mirror clear, nothing moved. I pushed the door shut, the latch clicking softly. I stepped back into the room and turned toward the entrance. The door was closed. I moved to it, turned the handle. It didn't move. I unlocked it, opened it, and stepped back into the hallway. I pulled the door shut again, locked it, the bolt sliding into place. I stood there for a moment, then walked back downstairs. I placed the key on the board and looked at the register again. Room 312, still vacant. I sat behind the desk and looked at the security monitor. Shituna, 4 camera views. The lobby, the parking lot, the hallway, and room 312. The screen flickered slightly. Then I saw it. Room 312, the bed, the window, the bathroom door, and a man standing near the curtain, facing it, tall, dark clothing, arms at his sides, no movement. I stood up slowly and stepped closer. The figure didn't move. I looked at the keyboard, the key for 312, still hanging. I took it again and went back upstairs. The hallway was empty, no sound. I reached the door, inserted the key, turned it, and opened the room. The bed was made, curtain still, bathroom door closed. Nothing inside. I stepped in, walked to the window, pulled the curtain. The street was empty. I turned back. The bathroom door was open. I walked toward it, and looked inside. Nothing. I stepped back, and the main door closed behind me, the latch clicking. I turned immediately, grabbed the handle. It didn't move. I unlocked it, opened it, stepped back into the hallway, then locked it again, standing there, holding the key. I went back downstairs and placed it on the hook. I looked at the monitor again. The man was closer now, much closer, near the bed, facing the camera. The outline sharper, head, shoulders, arms, still not moving. I opened the register and flipped through the pages. Older entries, room 312, again and again. Different dates, the same name repeated. I stopped on one, the name clearly written. I looked at the current page. Empty. I closed the register and looked back at the monitor. Now the man was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands on his knees, head slightly lowered. I grabbed the key again and went back upstairs. The hallway unchanged, silent. I reached the door, opened it, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. The latch clicked. I walked toward the bed. A man was sitting there, dark clothes, head lowered, hands on his knees. Eyes open, facing forward, no movement. I stopped, less than a meter away. The floor made a dry sound under my weight. He didn't react. I turned toward the bathroom, the door open. I looked inside. The mirror reflected the room. The bed was empty. I turned back. The bed was empty. I stepped back slowly, the air unchanged. I moved toward the door, pulled it. The handle moved, but the door didn't open. I unlocked it. The lock clicked. Still, nothing. I stepped away and looked at the bed again. Now, there was a body lying on its side, facing the wall. The sheet stretched over it. I walked slowly toward it, the mattress slightly lowered. I reached forward and pulled the sheet down. Nothing, empty. I stepped back quickly. I turned toward the bathroom. The mirror showed the room, and a man standing behind me, perfectly aligned. I turned immediately. The room was empty. I turned back to the mirror. Nothing. I moved to the door again and pulled harder. It didn't move. I stepped back and looked around the room. Lamp, chair, nightstand, all in place. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain. Street empty. I turned back. The man was there again, between me and the door, closer now, much closer. Facing me, eyes open, mouth slightly open, no movement. I didn't move. He didn't move. I turned toward the bathroom. The mirror showed nothing. I turned back. He was gone. I moved to the door again, pulled it, still locked. I stepped back and looked at the bed, flat, untouched. I walked to the center of the room and stood still. No sound, no movement. Then I went back downstairs. The lobby unchanged. I placed the key on the board and looked at the monitor. Room 312, empty. I sat down and opened the register. Current page. My name written in fresh ink. Room 312. Time marked minutes earlier. The handwriting matched mine. Exactly. I looked at the keyboard. The key was gone. I looked at my hand, empty. I stood up and walked back upstairs. The hallway, silent. I reached the door and pressed the handle. It opened without a key. I stepped inside. The light turned on. The room looked normal. I turned back and pulled the door. It didn't open. I pulled again. Nothing. I stepped back. The room unchanged. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain. Street empty. I turned back. The bathroom door was open. I walked toward it and looked inside. The mirror showed the room and a man standing directly behind me, face level with mine, eyes open. I didn't turn. I stayed looking at the mirror. I raised my hand slightly. In the reflection, he raised his hand too. I lowered it. He lowered it. I stood still for several seconds, then turned. The room was empty. I moved to the door again, pulled it, still locked. I walked to the bed, sat down, then stood again. Walked back to the door, pressed the handle, nothing. I stepped back and looked around, everything the same. Light, steady, no sound. I walked to the window, paused, then let the curtain fall. I turned back. He was closer. I turned again, closer still, until there was no space left. And in the mirror, there was no reflection of me anymore, only his. Story 2. I worked as the night projectionist at an old cinema downtown. The building was closed to the public, the marquee dark, the lobby empty, paper programs scattered across the floor. I arrived at 11, unlocked the side entrance, and stepped inside. The air was still, with no sound coming from the street behind me. I closed the door and walked up the stairs to the projection booth, a small enclosed room above the auditorium. The projector was silent, reels stacked on metal shelves, cables running along the walls. I prepared the machine, threaded the film, and started the screening. The projector engaged, the rotation steady, the beam of light cutting through the darkness while dust drifted through it. I sat down and watched through the small window. The screen below displayed the film, images moving across it, sound echoing through the empty rows of seats. Everything was aligned and nothing moved. Then a second sound appeared, not part of the film, a soft movement from below. I stood up and moved closer to the window, looking down at the rows. All the seats were upright. Nothing had changed. I stepped back and sat down again. The projector continued running. Then the sound returned, clearer this time, a seat shifting, followed by a short, compressed noise. I stood immediately and returned to the window, looking again. Nothing. Then another sound followed, a dry crack, the sound of popcorn breaking. I moved closer, pressing my face to the glass, focusing on the third row, center aisle. One seat lowered, the cushion compressed inward, held for a moment, then slowly returned to its original position. I stepped away from the window. The film continued, but the sound below did not stop. More movement now, fabric shifting, seats compressing and releasing. I moved back to the window and looked down again. Several seats lowered at the same time, 12 positions, side by side, evenly spaced, with no bodies visible above them. I counted them, 12. The film suddenly grew louder, music rising through the speakers. At the same moment, another sound appeared, hands clapping. Applause filled the entire auditorium, loud and close, surrounding everything. Then it stopped. The seats rose again, one by one, returning to their original position until everything looked normal. I turned away from the window and stopped the projector. The rotation slowed, then stopped completely. The light disappeared. Everything went dark. Silence followed. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. I reached for the handle, and it started again, clapping, this time inside the booth, close and sharp. I stayed still. The sound continued for several seconds, then stopped. I turned around. Nothing had changed. The chair, the shelves, the projector, everything exactly where it should be. I walked back to the window. The screen was on again. Moving images, not the film I had loaded, but something else. The projection booth, seen from behind. A person sitting in the chair, facing the window, wearing the same jacket as me. I turned slowly and looked at the chair behind me. Empty. I looked back at the screen. The figure stood up, moved toward the window, and stopped directly in front of it. I stayed where I was. The figure filled the frame, then disappeared. I turned again. The booth behind me was empty. I moved to the door, opened it, and stepped into the hallway. The building was silent. I walked down the stairs into the lobby and moved toward the exit. Then I heard footsteps behind me, perfectly synchronized with mine. I kept walking. The steps followed. I stopped. They stopped with me. I turned around. No one there. I turned forward and walked faster. The steps returned, still synchronized. I reached the exit door, pushed it open, and stepped outside. I closed it and locked it behind me. I walked away and reached the corner of the street. I stopped and turned back. The marquee was on, bright. A film title displayed, not one I had loaded, showtimes listed below it, including That Night. I crossed the street and looked through the front doors. The lights were on inside, the floor still covered with paper programs. And on the wall, a poster. The projection booth, the window, the chair, a person sitting, facing forward. The face, clearly visible, mine. I stepped back and looked up at the marquee. The title changed. Now, it showed my name. I turned and walked away. I reached my apartment, entered, and closed the door behind me. I checked my bag. No keys. I searched my pockets. Nothing. I looked at my hand. A ticket was there. I examined it. The cinema name, the date of that night, seat 12, row 3, center aisle. I turned it over. A time was written. Midnight. I looked at the clock on the wall, 11:58. I looked back at the ticket. Now, my name was printed on it. The clock moved. Midnight. Then the sound began again. The projector inside the apartment running steady. I walked to the window and looked outside. The cinema across the street was illuminated. The marquee bright. The doors open. People entering. One by one. I counted them. 12. Then one more figure approached, wearing the same jacket, walking toward the entrance. It entered. I stepped back from the window and closed the curtain. The projector sound continued behind me, steady and uninterrupted. The seating was complete. The position assigned. The screening already in progress. Story 3. I worked the night shift restocking shelves at a 24-hour supermarket on the main road. The store, nearly empty after midnight. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and casting a flat white light across the polished floor. My job was to refill the aisles, check expiration dates, and clean before morning. I started in the back warehouse, stacking boxes, aligning products and checking labels, the space silent, except for the hum of refrigeration units and the occasional click of cooling systems. Then a sound came from the store floor, a low rolling noise of wheels moving across tile. I stopped and listened as the sound continued at a steady pace, same direction, same speed. I walked to the warehouse door and pushed it open. The main store was visible under bright lighting, every aisle clear, no customers, no staff, no movement, but the sound did not stop. I stepped out and followed it into aisle 3. Rows of canned goods aligned on both sides, labels facing forward, everything in place. Ahead of me was the source, a shopping cart moving forward on its own, wheels turning at a constant speed. No hands on the handle, no one near it, no shadow around it. I watched as the cart continued forward, reached the end of the aisle, turned left, and entered the dairy section. I followed at a distance, keeping the shelving between us. The cart stopped in front of the refrigerators, the glass reflecting the overhead lights, holding position for several seconds before moving again and turning toward the bakery section. I moved faster, cutting across the aisle and reaching the bakery first, stepping behind a bread display and waiting. The cart arrived, rolled into position, and stopped directly in front of the pastry case, the basket empty, no items inside. I stepped out and walked toward it. The cart moved immediately, turning away and heading toward the checkout area. I stayed close this time as it reached lane 4 and stopped. The conveyor belt activated without input, the rubber surface beginning to move forward. A beep sounded from the scanner as a carton of milk passed across, followed by another beep and a loaf of bread, then eggs, then canned soup. Each item appeared in sequence, moved across the scanner, and dropped into bags at the end. I stood beside the lane, watching while the cart remained empty, and the items continued to process one by one, the beep repeating at fixed intervals. I reached forward and placed my hand on the cart handle, the metal cold. The cart moved immediately, pulling away from the checkout and returning to the aisles, and I stayed with it as it increased speed, navigating corners without stopping, entering different aisles, stopping at fixed points, holding position for several seconds, and then moving again, repeating the same pattern over and over. I stopped near the center of the store and watched it disappear behind the shelving. I moved quickly, checking each aisle one by one, turning corners and scanning both sides. Nothing. No cart. No sound. I returned to the warehouse. The store was silent again. I sat on a stack of boxes and picked up the inventory sheet. At the bottom of the page, additional items were written: milk, bread, eggs, canned soup. Below that, a name printed clearly. My name. Below that, a time. 2:30. I held the paper still for a moment, then stood up and walked back into the store. The beep sounded again from lane 4. Same rhythm, same spacing. I moved toward it. The checkout was active, the conveyor running, the same items moving across the scanner: milk, bread, eggs, canned soup. I reached forward and took the receipt as it printed, the paper still warm. I looked at it, the items listed, the total displayed below, paid in cash, my name printed beneath, and a line under it: "See you tomorrow night." I raised my head. The screen in front of me changed, switching to a camera feed. The warehouse was visible, a person seated on a box holding the inventory sheet, timestamp 2:29. I looked again. The screen changed. now showing the checkout lane, a person standing in front of it holding the receipt. I stepped back and looked up. A camera mounted above the lane pointed downward, a red light blinking. I moved to the side. The camera rotated, adjusting angle and following the movement. I crossed the store and the camera followed, maintaining position above. I turned into the warehouse and the camera was no longer visible. I picked up my bag and moved toward the exit. The shopping cart stood in front of the doorway, blocking the path, positioned exactly in the center. I stopped, but the cart did not move. I stepped to the side and moved past it, reaching for the door handle. The beep sounded again, louder this time. I turned. The checkout screens across the store were active, all displaying the same image: the exit door, the cart, and a person standing in front of it, with different timestamps: 2:30, 2:45, and 3:00. I opened the door and stepped outside. The parking lot was empty, the air cold. I walked to my car, unlocked it, entered, and closed the door. I looked at the receipt in my hand. The text had changed, additional lines printed, more dates, more times, repeating entries across multiple days. I lifted my head and looked at the store through the windshield. The interior lights were on, the cart positioned at lane 4, the conveyor belt moving slowly. I started the engine and drove away, the building shrinking behind me. I checked the mirror. The store was still visible, the lights unchanged. I reached my apartment, entered, locked the door, and walked into the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator. The middle shelf contained items aligned: milk, bread, eggs, canned soup, placed in a straight line with labels facing forward. I closed the door and stood still. I walked into the living room, sat down, and placed the receipt on the table. I looked at it again. The text changed. A new line printed. Delivery confirmed. Tomorrow night, same time. I remained seated. The room was silent. Then a sound began from the hallway outside, a low, rolling noise of wheels moving across tile, approaching slow and steady until it stopped just outside the door. I did not move. The handle did not turn. The sound did not continue. If you're still here, you saw everything. Some people closed the video early. Others recognize the pattern. Which story broke the rules for you? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe to Tales of the Darkness and stay until the end next time. Because next time, the pattern might be closer